Section 5.3, long division and synthetic division. So I'm going to do an example for those of you who've been having some troubles with this. If we look at this polynomial, we have 6y to the fourth plus 15y cubed minus 28y minus 6 divided by y plus 2. Now for this, let's go ahead and do long division first. Remember, when you're doing long division, this part right here, which is your dividend, must be in standard form. And also, you need to have 0 placeholders. For missing terms. And this right here is called our divisor. And the answer is called the quotient. And again, this one was the dividend. So let's go ahead and do our long division first. So again, for the long division, we need to be in standard form, which this is, but notice that we're missing our term that is quadratic. So I need to add in a 0 placeholder for that. So I have y plus 2 over here, and then underneath I have 6y to the fourth plus 15y cubed plus 0y squared minus 28y minus 6. Now, when I'm doing my long division, I want to see how many times does y go into 6y to the fourth. So what times y would give me this? Or what I like to do is my math to the side to kind of help me decide. So I have 6y to the fourth. And how many times does y go into that? It goes 6 divided by 1 is 6, and y to the fourth over y, you subtract the exponents and get y to the third. So it goes 6y to the third times. So I want to line that up with the terms that are the cubic terms. So 6y cubed would go right here. Now when you're done with that, you take this term and you multiply it by y and then line it up. So 6y cubed times y is 6y to the fourth, and it's the same, notice, because we did that on purpose. And then 6y cubed times y would give me 12y cubed, so that goes right here. And again, notice that we lined up the terms with their place that they belong in. When you are doing long division like this, you subtract then the terms, so don't forget the minus signs there. So 6y to the fourth minus 6y to the fourth cancels out, which we did on purpose. And then 15y cubed minus 12y cubed gives me 3y cubed. And then you bring down your other terms. And then you're going to start all over again. So for this next part, I say, how many times does y go into 3y cubed? So I'm going to do my math off to the side. And I get 3y squared. So then I line up the 3y squared with the terms. It's positive, so plus 3y squared goes there. And then now I'm going to take that 3y squared and it gets multiplied by the y. So that gives me 3y cubed, which we did on purpose. That's why it's the same. And this times the 2 gives me 6y squared. And then, of course, when we're doing this, we want to change our signs. So this, we're subtracting. So our first terms cancel out, which we did on purpose. And then minus 6y squared, and then bring down your other terms. And then we're going to start all over. So we want to know how many times does y go into negative 6y squared. So it goes in negative 6y times. So minus 6y gets lined up with the linear terms. So then negative 6y, we multiply it by y first. So that gives me negative 6y squared. Notice they're the same, which we did on purpose. And then negative 6y times the 2 gives me negative 12y. And then, of course, remember when you're doing long division, you're subtracting, so we got to change our signs. So this would be plus right here, and this would change to a plus. And then again, notice that when we did this, our first terms are going to cancel out, which we did on purpose. Remember, if those terms do not cancel out, then something went wrong. And then negative 28y plus 12y gives me negative 16y, and then bring down the negative 6. Then we are going to do how many times does y go into negative 16y. So it goes negative 16 times, so that gets lined up with my constant term. So we take that negative 16, multiply it by the y, and that gives me negative 16y, which again we did on purpose, and negative 16 times the 2 would give me negative 32. And then we have to change the sign, so this would be plus, this would change to plus. These cancel out, which we did on purpose, and then negative 6 plus 32 ends up giving me 26. And since this right here, the last term is constant, degree 0, and this is right here, the divisor is degree 1. Whenever the last part is less than the degree of your divisor, that means you can stop. So right now that tells me my remainder is 26. And the way that you would then write your equation is you would take this whole thing, so it's 6y cubed plus 3y squared minus 6y minus 16, and then you have plus, because it's positive remainder, 26 over your divisor because it can't go in anymore, to this divisor, and this would be your solution. So that is long division. Now I'm going to erase my side work that I did over here, and I'm going to show you synthetic division. So remember that you can only use synthetic division on a linear divisor, and my divisor is linear, and your coefficient of your divisor has to be, your leading coefficient has to be 1, which it is in this case. So then in my box goes the opposite, so if it's y plus 2, negative 2 goes in here, and then I list my coefficients. So my coefficients would be 6, 15, we need the 0 placeholder, negative 28, and negative 6. So it's your coefficients of your dividend. And then the difference between long division and synthetic division, instead of subtracting, we add, and you bring down this first term, so that's 6. So then you take this 6 and multiply by your what's in your box, negative 2. So 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. And then you're going to add these terms together. 15 plus negative 12 gives me 3. And then I do 3 times what's in my box, so 3 times negative 2 gives me negative 6. Negative 6 and 0 gives me negative 6. And then negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. And 12 minus 28 is negative 16. Negative 16 times 2 gives me 32. 32 and negative 6 gives me positive 26. And then remember that when you're doing synthetic division, since you took out your x's, you still have to place them back in. So when you're placing them back in, it's always 1 less than degree of your dividend. So my dividend is a degree 4. So then we start off y to the third. This would be y squared. This would be y, and then we don't have a y here, and this is our remainder. So 6y cubed plus 3y squared minus 6y minus 16 plus 26 over my divisor y plus 2. And notice that our answers are the same, which they should be, because it's doing the same. We're just doing long division, so we're doing the same problem, just 2 different ways of doing the same problem. And notice that our answer ends up being equivalent. So that's synthetic division and long division.